to Ghosts in the Valley podcast. I am your host, Al Cooley. Today we have Russ Bailey, lead investigator, and also Jarrell, also lead investigator for Black Sky Paranormal. Black Sky is a paranormal investigation team that they operate out of West Virginia, and they are very good. They also have their hands in a lot of other projects, and we'll find out what those projects are right after this brief promo from Nightshade. It's a redesigned paranormal podcast I listen to regularly, and it's very, very good. We'll be right back.
Look, Mr. Temple, you know something? This could be the beginning of like a real horror story.
Horror stories. This is where I come in. You remember those scary stories we heard around the campfire? Some were told by brothers and sisters, some by friends, but these are told by me.
The rain is raining, the thunder is thundering, and I'm scared.
Join along in an all-new podcast dedicated to horror. From haunted forests, abandoned hospitals, and circuses for the dead, each episode will have you on the edge of your seat. With multiple theme seasons ahead, the nightmares won't stop. Follow along with me here. Follow along with all of us. We're waiting for you at Nightshade.
So what's Horton doing walking around, huh? He may have been too busy to lie down and die.
Coming to us from the southern part of West Virginia, the creative minds behind Black Sky Paranormal Investigators, Beyond the Strange podcast, and anything else I missed, Russ and Carl?
I think you pretty much nailed it.
Russ Bailey and Jarrell, lead investigators for Black Sky, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Do you do most of your investigations out of West Virginia?
We're located in southern West Virginia, in a little town called Bluefield. We've been to several different locations throughout the Mid-Atlantic and East. We've been to Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. We've did investigations at Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. We've also went to St. Albans Sanatorium in Radford, Virginia. Different places up and down through the Mid-Atlantic and everything.
We are blessed to have a couple of really good locations here in state, but we have been anywhere from Virginia, northern West Virginia, Tennessee, places like that. So,
yeah, we got some pretty cool places here in Ohio. I'm located between Youngstown and Cleveland. So how did you two meet?
Well, Carl and I have known each other probably, 30, 40 years almost, a long time.
I mean, we literally grew up together. We were both mall rats back in the day when malls were the places to go to. So we've known each other for a long time. And then, when I found out that Russ was starting his own group, I'm like, sign me up, man. I'm all in on this one. So,
well, you've been doing it since 2017, around there?
Yeah, we started Black Sky Paranormal back in 2017. Actually, May of 2017, with the maiden voyage of Black Sky Paranormal, so to speak, with St. Albans Sanatorium, which we actually had met another group, and they go by Argos Paranormal. We have collaborated with them several times. Including you can see us in a couple of episodes of their show, The Witching Hour, which is available at Argos Paranormal YouTube page or argosparanormal.com. So you definitely check them out. They're excellent.
Yeah, and I'll put all your links in the bottom of this podcast so the listeners can, get a hold of you and check out what you got going on. How many is in your team of the Black Sky?
Currently, right now, we have about 5 active members that we're working with right now. We're kind of on a hiatus right now due to the coronavirus and the COVID pandemic, but looking to get back out in the field once this madness is all over and everything.
Yeah, we actually got a member who joined, who hasn't had a chance to investigate us with us yet, partly due to this. So hopefully when things get back to whatever new normal we have, he'll be another asset that we have available to us.
I think about everybody I've had on this my podcast in the last few months says the same thing. The virus has set everything back. I mean, as far as everything. I mean, entertainment to going out on investigations and social distancing and all that. Yeah, we'll just hold off and when they give the green light, then get back on it.
Most definitely.
On your investigations, Have you ever felt threatened by any spirit?
A few times we have run into some hostile entities. For one instance, at the Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, we were utilizing the phasma box session down in the basement, the boiler room of the hospital. And the doctor that supposedly haunts that place actually said he wanted to kill me. So I know Carl has had some, malicious entities also come towards him, so to speak.
I've been doing this on and off for probably close to 20 years, like ever since I was right out of college. I guess it counts as an investigation. I guess it's kind of my rookie voyage because I didn't have any equipment or anything. We kind of did it on a lark. But the very first place I went to was Waverly Hills Sanatorium. So if you're going to do it right. And I actually did get scratched on my back at Waverly Hills. So that was a nice welcome to the field I got. So yeah, there's been several times where either directly through EVPs or indirectly or even physically.
Talking to an investigator my past episode, matter of fact, and we got to talking about EVPs and voice boxes and digital recorders, and you can all the stuff you use to get your information, but nothing can detect you getting pushed from behind or cool breeze running through you or flicking at the ears or like you said, scratching on you. You can't replace that with an instrument. Yeah, but people want proof. Sometimes I'm on an investigation, I don't get any proof. But I know it's there because I feel it.
Yeah, at our investigation we did down at St. Albans Sanatorium in Radford, Virginia, my sister actually tagged along with us, and she actually got an attachment. An entity attached itself to her. So the medium that was on the guide with us, we had to take her outside and just clear the whatever was attached to her and everything. So that was kind of frightening too.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a baptism of fire.
I kind of want to piggyback off something you said just now, Al. There's several times where, more often than not, where you go to a location that's supposedly very active and you're basically sitting in the dark for 8 hours. You don't hear anything. You don't see anything. Doesn't necessarily mean there's not anything going on there. It just, whether they decide to come out and play or whether maybe you've got some bad information from someone. So yeah, just it gets kind of glorified on some of the television shows where no matter what they go, it's just absolute insanity every corner they turn. When 75, 80% of the time you're literally sitting in the dark talking to yourself for 8 hours. So, when you're out there doing it, when you do catch something, that's when you really have to dig into it and see if there really is something there.
Do you use anything like trigger items or anything like that?
We have before. When we went to Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, there's a little girl who supposedly haunted a couple of the rooms, and when we went up there, we took toys for her to play with. We have used stuff like that in the past. Sometimes it's effective, sometimes it isn't. That's just part of the job, I guess. Hopefully you get results.
That's like you were saying, when sometimes you sit 8 hours in the dark. On some investigations, you might have 2 or more investigating teams there in the same place. And all 3 teams are sitting in the dark and nobody's getting anything. And all of a sudden it's this one person in one of the groups and the spirit decides just to contact her. And that's because she speaks Hispanic. And nobody thought of that, that this person couldn't speak English. So it was communicating to her, just mainly to her, and I thought that was interesting. They pick who they want to speak with.
Definitely.
And sometimes if you're giving off a bad vibe or somebody in your group's giving off a bad vibe, it can set them off,
Speaking of which, too, when we went to investigate the Lord Baltimore Hotel in Baltimore, Maryland, which, like Russ mentioned earlier, it is on Argos Paranormal's YouTube page. You can see the episode in full. But there's one section in the episode, it didn't catch all of the context of the situation. What happened basically was it had been kind of a quiet night up to that point. And we went upstairs just to give the Reader's Digest version of the history. Apparently, during the Great Depression, it's one of the tallest buildings in Baltimore. So a lot of people chose to jump off it just because it was the tallest. And unfortunately, some of the adults took their kids with them over the side. So where things hadn't been really active up until that point in the evening, maybe it's a little bit of frustration, maybe just trying to get something out of somebody. I'm not a fan of it, but I was actually trying to provoke at that point. I was calling a lot of them cowards, saying that was cowardly to kill themselves, much less to kill them kid. And in the footage that you can see on the episode, something calls me an a-hole, or it says, I'm trying to talk, and it says something about an a-hole, and I ask if I'm the a-hole. So I might have, gotten to react to me that way. Again, I'm not fan of provoking. It's kind of a last resort, but yeah, situations like that, yeah, somebody can be trying to reach out to a specific member of your team. You might remind them of somebody they knew when they were alive, and maybe that's why they want to reach out to you. There's several different things why they might reach out to one person in particular, but not necessarily the rest of the team.
You have to be very careful, where you go, where you, if the spirit's already there, you shouldn't have a problem contacting or dealing with that spirit. I found that only one time in my 40 plus years, only once, where I had a evil demon in the house that I was investigating, and got out real quick because I wasn't experienced on dealing with that side of it. That was my next question to you. Do you believe that you can clear a house or cleanse a house or move the spirit on?
I think we can. We do have a medium in our group. Her name's Donna Hall. And she has a psychic connection to whatever it is we're encountering in all the locations we go to. We did an investigation at the Apollo Theater in Martinsburg, West Virginia, along with Argos Paranormal, another joint venture project. We were on the stage doing a EVP session, Phasma box, K2, had the K2 meter going. There was an aggressive spirit that actually was touching Ryan Martinez, who is a member of Argos Paranormal. Donna came on stage pretty much, and the spirit fled from her, and we knew something was there too, because the K2 meter, I don't know if you remember this or not, Carl, but the K2 meter stayed like a solid yellow for a good 30 minutes that night.
Oh yeah, it didn't turn off.
Yeah,
stayed yellow for literally at least 23 minutes. I've never seen K2 stay lit up for that amount of time.
Yeah, that's a really haunted location too. It's fascinating. I want to go back there definitely.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the Martinsburg, the Apollo Theater, I think they did have somebody fall from the rafters and die there. I think it's just a lot of the energy that gets people that's visited there and everything. Donna and I actually encountered some entities in the basement, and we were dealing with like probably 7 or 8 spirits that night. We all got names from them and everything.
Well, and the thing is too, that is still a location that is in business. They were at the time anyway. I'm not sure what they do now, but they just held a musical that night, a couple hours before we got there. So if there are any, actors or actresses or, like I said, stagehand that fell from the rafters, that performance they had just a couple hours ago might have stirred them up that night.
I don't know if you've ever investigated old abandoned churches, and if they have a graveyard off the church where some of your prominent members were given special spots in the cemetery, in the graveyard. And then if you weren't really a prominent member and somebody died, and they actually put their body on top of the other one because nobody came to visit or, whatever. And then when the church shuts down, it's abandoned, there's all types of activity there. I've learned that through a Southern Baptist preacher from Alabama that you might want to check those out.
Yeah.
I found one in Virginia, and it's pretty active.
Yeah, a lot of churches are. Some of them do have a history. Even people dying in churches and everything. And I'm sure entities visit churches and everything like that too. Demonic entities. That's
why I had a question here, like a few weeks ago. I put on the podcast. If anybody has any corona, virus, because they say that most of your spirits are from sudden or untimely death, or so. And how many of you loved ones that didn't say goodbye to their loved one when they died? So I'm assuming that you're going to get a whole lot of activity here pretty soon because they never got to say their goodbyes. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
There's no timestamp on paranormal activity, whether they've been dead for a couple hundred years or a couple months. It creates a lot of emotion, and that emotion can, create energy and cause stuff to manifest. So some people obviously weren't ready to move on. It's one thing if you see it coming, but not only the people who actually passed, but the people who knew them. It's just like out of nowhere. We've got perfectly healthy people dying within a matter of days, and alone, never been able to say goodbye or anything like that. So.
Right. I'm thinking there's thousands of people out there that, this happened to, so, and I'm already getting stories that they're being contacted. Get a few more and I'll probably do a podcast on that one. But
well, I'll tell you something else, Al. Something that's happened recently in our city. Princeton Community Hospital recently bought Bluefield Regional Medical Center out, and they've closed the whole part of the hospital except for the emergency room. Couple months ago, we found out that the local college, Bluefield State, is going to be buying the rest of the hospital for housing for residency of doctors and nurses and everything. Now, my grandpa actually died at that hospital back in 1991, and I'm sure there's been thousands of people die in that hospital since. So I'm wondering, what the paranormal activity is going to be like there, because I'm sure there will be something there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I saw the most of your hospitals and asylums are so much activity. It's unreal. If you ever get a chance to come up north to, it's around Hermitage, Pennsylvania, I believe it is, Hillview Manor.
Yes, I've heard of that.
It's an old asylum, and I've been there. They had a cemetery, like I was mentioned earlier, like outside of a church, but this is outside the asylum that they buried all these people. Thousands of people out there buried. A golf course came in and built their golf course over top these graves. So I believe that's where a lot of these spirits are going inside the asylum or are already in the asylum. And that's why they have so much activity there. So I was listening to your show the other night. We were talking earlier before we started this, Russ. Beyond the Strange podcast.
Yes.
Gentleman you had on that was a reverend. I remember everything shut down and you lost him there for a minute. It reminded me of a guest I had on that had all this energy because she was abducted. And matter of fact, it was on the Unsolved Mysteries, and I had her on the show, and she shut down my whole system. So it kind of took me back to that night because, it took the programs out of my computer. She immediately called me back and says, "Did I do that?" And I says, "Yeah, I believe so." Because my lights and everything flickered when she said, "I just sent you a bunch of energy." So when he was talking, that reminded me of her. Then that little rectangular thing he had under his skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dave Cruz and myself. Dave is actually the founder of Beyond the Strange, and I do the co-hosting. We interviewed the Reverend John Polk the other night. We had a 2-part interview on the Twitch channel. Pretty much, John delved into the information that he could almost make UFOs appear on demand. Now, he lives in Sedona, Arizona, which is a hot spot for UFO activity. He's been implanted, and we have no shadow of a doubt that it was his energy that was causing the Twitch channel to act up and everything. Even something really weird in part 1 of the interview, when we first started, my TV that's sitting in front of me actually turned on and turned off by itself while we were interviewing John. So that could be the magnitude of the power he's wielding from, communicating with the extraterrestrials or whatever he's communicating with.
I find that very strange that just with my past guests I've had on, how that relates to each other at different time periods from 1966 to 1994. John was on the other night for you, and Melanie, that was from the Unsolved Mysteries. I had her on my show. It's just so many activities that link together from different time periods. It's hard enough to, when you say you've seen a UFO but when you say you were abducted, people, they're skeptical. And I do know that if you do get a chance, check out the on YouTube or even on my past episodes, I have UFOs over Trumbull County. What happened in 1994 in my county, where all these law enforcement officers chasing this UFO across Ohio to PA. And can you imagine if you have 15 state patrol, city police, sheriffs, they've got this thing surrounded in an open field, a light shines on all of them, and they can't move. They're frozen. Their mind's telling them what to do, but they don't have control of their body, and their lights, their radio and everything, flashlights, everything goes out. And then the very next day when the State Department comes in, they're told, It was a weather balloon. If you get a chance, check that out. It's on YouTube. It happened in 94 in my county here. I believe just from the phone calls I get, pilots that have chased these things, it's covered up by the government, and they only tell you what they want you to know.
Yeah.
So I do believe that.
Yeah, well, you think about it. I mean, you're in Ohio, and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is not far from you. And supposedly that's where they took the bodies of the extraterrestrials when the Roswell crash happened back in the 40s.
I was there. I went there, and I tried to get into Hangar 18 because that's where the bodies are. They're still to this day. Not only the bodies, but all the pieces of the craft.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I asked if there's any way I can get back there because I'm doing a thing for my documentary, and because I was in the video production at the time, and I was escorted all the off the base, so that was something they did not even want to discuss.
Yeah, so that tells you right there that there's something there. I mean, it's you even I've been following a show called UFO Witness lately on Discovery Plus. Supposedly, one of the episodes they interviewed Laura Eisenhower, who is General Eisenhower's granddaughter. Supposedly, he had a deal with extraterrestrials, the Greys, that they could abduct us for DNA experiments in exchange for technology. So it's very feasible that that's happened. And I mean, in your county where that sighting happened, I mean, that's credible witnesses to law enforcement. They're not going to be lying about anything they've seen like that. And, the military, I really get tired of them just lying to us all the time at, weather balloon or swamp gas or whatnot. It's just crazy.
Like I said, you have all these different, at least over 10 different law departments from different counties chasing this thing 50 miles. And it was playing with them, because when it got to the PA line, since you had so many people trying to cross that bridge going into Pennsylvania, they got crammed up there. But it sat across the bridge and waited for them. So then it led them into another little chase. And then my buddy that's on the law enforcement at that time, I had two of them, worked two different police departments, and one told me that he knows what he saw, and he knows it wasn't a weather balloon. He knows it was something not of this world. Because you can't go from 0 mile an hour to over 1,000 mile an hour. From that point in the field, it went out of sight in a matter of 2 seconds. It was something he's never seen before. And he said, if it wanted to take care of them, it probably could have. So it was far more superior, and it wasn't there to cause any trouble. He said he was just, I don't know why it would lead him on a 50-mile chase, but it was started in Youngstown. If you get a chance to listen, watch it. There's a video on. They did a TV show, half-hour show, I think it is, and it shows some of the footage of some of the police officers, when the light was shined down on their car, and they couldn't move. I mean, these are law enforcement officers. I mean, these aren't people, crackpots from different sides of town. They're everywhere. I mean, all these people you had all these people calling in saying they've seen this thing. It's all on 911. That's what I got a copy of the tape from the 911 call. So that's why I put on my podcast. So everything on there is off that 911 tape of them talking to these cops, and, a couple of them, they put on there, it was a planet, or it was the moon, or they were told not to say what it was. And even to this day, he can't come on my podcast and talk about what it was. He has a gag order even to this day. So why would they hide that if there's nothing there?
One saying that's always stuck with me is like one person is smart, but a large group of people is not so smart. It's kind of insulting the excuses you get for stuff like that. But at the same time, it's a whole mass paranoia thing. Like even a couple thousand people as opposed to a couple 100,000 people, all of a sudden, everything they've ever known their entire life is just thrown on its head, and they just act out irrationally. I guess it's to protect us to a point, but it's insulting to us as grown adults. Some of the stuff, the Pentagon has finally started acknowledging some of that stuff finally, with some of the aerial footage they've captured and declassified. But again, like I said, one person can make rational decisions on their own, but several thousand, several million, not so much.
Yeah, have you watched the Berkshire's UFO on Netflix?
Yes.
What I found interesting, and it came in from people that contacted me after my 8-part series I ran, was I didn't know this, but they shut down the Project Blue Book at the end of '69. Well, they shut it down because they said there wasn't enough activity, but that's just the opposite. There was tons of activity. It was especially happening after they landed on the moon. So if you look at go back and look at that, and I'm going to have another episode coming up here pretty soon, that the astronauts left a medallion on the moon from the United States and other countries. That's very interesting, and how ironic that after the landing on the moon, we're polluted with sightings.
Yeah, it's definitely, we talk about the moon landings and everything. It's, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, first men on the moon. It's a wonder, I often wonder what they saw up there. Because, there's rumors that they saw alien base up there. They saw crafts and everything like that. But, it's awful funny how we haven't been back to the moon in, 40-some years, 50 years?
Right.
I just find that kind of weird in itself.
Well, they even made a movie about that several years ago about theoretically when they took a second moon mission. It was Apollo something. I can't remember the name off the top. But yeah, they actually made a movie about, they went back and this is why we didn't go back. This is why we shouldn't go back. So again, fictional movie, but. Are
you far from Cass, West Virginia?
It's the northern part of West Virginia. That's where the railroad is, correct?
Right. They had the satellite, the radio towers there.
Yeah, I've been there. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now you get a chance when you go in there. If you ever take a tour of that, pretty interesting that they have one satellite alone just for that type of activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unless you ask about it, they're not going to tell you about it. It is interesting because I pulled the guy off to the side and said, "I learned more about that satellite. What kind of sounds are you picking up?" He says a lot of it isn't out of a speaking type of language. It's like a code, and it comes from coming from another galaxy.
Oh yeah,
that's in you guys' neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's they've picked up a lot of strange signals, and I think honestly, extraterrestrials probably have been on Earth for a while. I mean, you hear of sightings of USO, unidentified submerged objects. Rumors of underground alien bases, as in the United States, out in Dulce, New Mexico. So, I mean, it's hard to say, if it's portals that they're coming through to travel, because they would have to be traveling at a high rate of speed to be able to get here. And, the space-time continuum, it's just mind-boggling, so to speak. But I think a lot of the aliens and extraterrestrial UFOs, I think a lot of it's connected with other paranormal activities such as cryptids like Bigfoot, the Mothman, which the Men in Black actually had a big presence when the Silver Bridge fell back in the 60s, when the Mothman was sighted. They had a big presence here in West Virginia. I mean, that's a whole other show in its own. But I mean, you wonder what the connection on that is. And I've always had a theory also that sometimes the entities that we encounter in paranormal investigations could be extraterrestrial, because if they can cloak their ship, why couldn't they cloak themselves and walk among us and communicate with us through radio waves or telepathic waves?
I believe that they're really so far advanced than us. Look at the pyramids. How can any man build that? I mean, just perfectly.
Yeah.
It'd be like showing a lightsaber to a caveman. Like if they're here and among us, like our mental capacity literally could not conceive of the stuff they're capable of. So yeah, it just for them to be able to get here to start with would just, unravel most of everything that we know as a human species.
Yeah, you're talking about the Men in Black, and they had a huge presence even with the Roswell, and even back in the 60s.
Oh yeah, well, in 1952 when they had the UFOs over the Washington, the Capitol, and everything like that, there's speculation that the Flatwoods Monster in West Virginia is actually an extraterrestrial, because it appeared around that time that the UFOs were over Washington, D.C., and it's possible it could have been from a crashed UFO or anything. So it's awful funny how all of these cryptids and everything are connected and everything. So, but I definitely think there a lot of it is extraterrestrial origin.
Yeah, I had a past guest on, and he asked me a question, man. I was asking him all these questions. He says, "You don't mind if I ask you a question?" I says, "Yeah, go shoot it," And he says, "Do you believe that UFOs and Bigfoot are connected?" And I didn't know how to answer that, and it wasn't until I got off the show and I did some more research on it, because he had made it a point that when you see a UFO around a body of water in the woods, and it's always around a lake or something, and then there's a lot of mass sightings of Bigfoot in that area.
Yeah, definitely. Dave Cruz, the host of Beyond the Strange, he went on a Bigfoot expedition up in Oregon a couple of years ago. He didn't see any, Bigfoot or Sasquatch or anything, but he did encounter lights and some strange sounds. So I definitely think it's connected with UFO activity.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but now I look back on it, I'm thinking, who's to say? Why haven't they caught any bones of Bigfoot? He says, well, if they're carnivorous animals, and they eat, how animals eat other animals that are dead, why would there be bones out there?
Right.
I was actually watching a show here just a couple of days ago, actually. Now, Russ is more of a buff on this particular branch of paranormal than I am, but as far as like Bigfoot goes, a lot of theories are that they're actually transdimensional, like they actually open portals. That's why nobody's ever been able to actually catch one, why nobody's actually found bones or anything, because they're coming from another dimension. Now, how much credibility that has, I don't know, but it will explain a lot considering we've been trying to catch one for the last, couple hundred years, and not even a skull or bones or anything. Like, yep, I'm just going to walk in here and walk out this way. We'll see you guys. I mean, yeah.
Well, and something else, I think the Sasquatch, Bigfoot are very intelligent too, because there's a gentleman that had some tape from 1973. You could hear the what they call samurai chatter, and it was the Bigfoots communicating with kind of a Japanese sound. They called it samurai chatter. So, what could that be? That's insane if you think about it.
The paranormal, like I was telling my past guest, it's such an open field. I mean, there's aliens to UFOs, spirits, Bigfoot, shadow man. I mean,
by definition, paranormal is beyond normal.
He asked me a question. He says, have you ever seen a shadow man? And shadow people? I said, no, I have never. In my 50 years or plus, I've never seen this. He said, wow, he was just startled by that, And I said, I've dealt with spirits. I've seen a ghost. And I know a lot of people have seen and dealt with shadow, but I haven't. Have you?
Yeah, actually, I have. Yeah. Several investigations we've had. I've actually had a shadow entity visit me one night in my den. I used to have a computer in my den, and it was set on a screensaver. And then all of a sudden, I look, my bedroom's next to my den, and I wake up and I look in the doorway, and I can see the outline of looked almost like a female figure. It was solid black, and I ran into the room, and nothing was there. And I know I wasn't dreaming because my cat was outside my door scratching, trying to get in, and he came in and just went nuts.
Yeah, wow.
Carl, tell him about some of our sightings we've had with Black Sky Paranormal. Pretty impressive sightings there also.
Well, I was going to say, even with Black Sky or without, like I said, I've been in the business for almost 20 years. When we went to Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, I probably saw the best one I've ever seen. Basically, they kept the place on lockdown because they had a squatter problem, I guess. So there's basically one way in the building, one way out the building, which is through the ER entrance. If you absolutely had to go out the entrance, they would let you out. You just have to let them know so they could lock the doors behind you. So anyway, me and this lady, it was her first time investigating. So welcome aboard. Here's Old South Pittsburgh. And anyway, we had just come back in from outside through the ER entrance. And when you walk in through the ER entrance, if you turn to your left, there's a hallway that stretched probably about 50 yards. Like I said, 98% of that building doesn't have electricity. Like the break room had electricity, obviously, just in the bathroom area, stuff like that. But this one hallway, when you first walk in the building, had a couple ceiling lights. So me and her just chit-chatting as we walk back in, and we turn to walk down this hallway, and there's a ceiling light at the very end of the hallway, and there's a hazmat trash can there at the end of the hallway. And I see this, like I said, there's direct light shining on this. This is not, something I see in the dark. My eyes might be playing tricks on me. there's a ceiling light shining on this. There's a black mass sitting in front of this hazmat trash can. The best way I can describe it is it looked like the silhouette of a dog if it was sitting down, but instead of the pointy ears, it looked like a human that was sitting like a dog would. So of course I'm like, hey, and I take off running down the hall towards it. It doesn't stand up and run away. It like literally like slides across the floor into the wall. So when me and the lady get down there and check where the creature had slid through, there's a double door, but it was chained and deadbolted. And so I mean, like I saw a shadow figure, not in the dark, like with light shining on it. It was like seeing a shadow at noon. Is how dark this thing was. And that's unfortunately I was taking a break, so I didn't have any equipment, of course. So all I had to go by is a good story to tell. Cool story, bro.
And, I hear a lot of those stories, and I'm thinking, well, when's my turn?
It'll come eventually.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Get back together again here later on in the year. Do a follow-up.
Definitely.
We'll touch base anytime you'll have us on.
Where can they get a hold of you at?
Facebook, you can reach us at Black Sky Paranormal. You could also follow us on Twitter. Our handle on Twitter is at @BSky_paranormal. You can also see a couple of episodes of The Witching Hour that we're in. The Lord Baltimore Hotel is one of them. You can go to argosparanormal.com. That's ARGOS paranormal.com, or their YouTube page. And you can catch me on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at beyondthestrange.com. The Wednesday and Thursday night show are on the Twitch Beyond the Strange channel. So it's twitch.tv/beyondthestrange.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, greatly appreciate it, Al.
Thank you, Russ, and thank you, Carl, for that fantastic interview. And I will have all the links where people can go to contact you for an investigation, get to your podcast, or any other questions they have. I am your host, Al Cooley, from Ghosts in the Valley podcast. We'll see you in 2 weeks with another great episode.